Hey, 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 everybody. God bless you. It's me, your life coach, Andrea Jackson. Welcome to Joy Life Center Coaching and Consulting. I am so glad that you're able to be here today, even if it is virtually by subscription, because many times we can't always make every appointment, but I'm so glad that you subscribe with us and that you're here. We're going to go ahead and start admitting other people to group. So just hold on a second. Hello, hello, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Kashara. How are you?
Bless, thank you. How are you, Miss Jackson?
I'm well. Thank you so much for asking. So glad you made it on today. We missed you.
Oh, I missed you all too.
Excellent, excellent. I see Miss Bianca's here. Good morning, Miss Bianca.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well in yourself.
I'm fine. Thank you so much. We're going to jump right on in. Others will be chiming in when they come. I'm so glad that you guys are here. As you notice, my background is a little strange today. It's a little weary. It's a little out of this world. And we want to talk about some things that sometimes our feelings are just like that. We're not ourselves. We're kind of out of this world. We can't really get in touch with our feelings. So we're going to be talking about that today. I'm going to introduce to you a whole new idea. Maybe it's new to you, maybe not so new, about PTSD, because some of the things that we've experienced are the cause of some of our behaviors. Excuse me. Some of our compulsive, unhealthy, addictive behaviors, sometimes the way we automatically respond to some things is because of some traumas that have happened in our past. So we're going to get into that, but let's go ahead and start our check-in. I think Miss Kashara was the first caller this morning. So Miss Kashara, go ahead and check in, please.
Good morning. Good morning again. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. I am Kashara, and I just want to say that today my day seems to be very well. I just have a boost of energy to and excitement. I tell you, I'm excited about what is going on uh, for Joy Center, the Joy Center. I tell you, it is really, really, really blessing me, teaching me, and I'm excited. I'm just excited to see what today is going to bring. Something that I can put in my little box and lock it in
Yeah.
and use it for the edification of what's going on around me, in me, and through me, and that it'll be a blessing to someone that I can give back to them what is given and imparted in me on today.
Hey, I love that. I love that attitude. What we receive, we give to others. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Sister Kashara. Let's see, Miss Bianca, go ahead and check in, please.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm doing well. I too have this boost of energy. Um, I got up, dressed up, showed up,
Hey.
giving up. So that's my motto, and I'm sticking with it on today. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Say it one more time. What's your motto for today?
Get up, dress up, show up, and never give up.
Hey, I love that. I said I was going to write that down. I have to write it down today before I forget that. Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, I see Miss Susu is chiming in. Miss Susu, go ahead and check in if you can.
Hi, Ms. Susu. Good morning to all. And my status is I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm enjoying the sunshine. I feel good today.
Excellent, excellent. Wow. Enjoying the sunshine. I love that. You guys sound great today. So great. And I'm so glad to hear that, because you know what? When we're in a place of safety, we can add to our foundation. It's when we're not in safety, when we're in the midst of trouble, trauma, or instability, that it's hard to grasp onto a new pillar, a new handle of strength. But when we're in that good foundation, that's the time to add to us. So I'm so glad that everyone's in a good space today. Like I said, sometimes our feelings is really motivating some of our responses. And sometimes we wonder, why did I respond like that? What's going on with me? Why did I blow up? Why did I, why? Sometimes we don't understand where the behaviors come from, but that's why we're here, because we want to try to identify the behaviors so that we can do something about them. Now, some of these behaviors that we're operating in, they come from what's called PTSD, which is post-traumatic syndrome disorder. A post-traumatic syndrome disorder is something that we've commonly known with soldiers that came from war. They came from Iraq. They've come from a place where they've been in combat. But I want to let you know that your life sometime has been a combat. Relationships have been a combat. Childhood sometimes been a combat. There are different things that have gone on through your life that we don't understand, that our emotional self has a response to it. And our emotional self sometimes don't know how to respond. I'll give you an example. I have a son that was on his job, and he was approached by another male at the job, who whispered some vile things in his ears that was against his sexuality. So what happened in this scenario, and I'm so sorry, I forgot to put this on airplane mode. Forgive me, don't want anything to interrupt us. So what I find, what happened was, he had a situation where the man said some vile things in his ear, and they were degrading to who he was, or who he is, excuse me, as a man. And before he knew it, he just reached out and he just kind of pushed the guy. And so there was this whole big old thing at work. They said that my son had attacked him and things like that. But when he got home, my husband told him, because he was kind of down, he was kind of depressed, he didn't know if he was going to lose his job. And my husband shared with him, when you haven't been through something, you've never been through that, son. So you responded, he said, in a way, in the only way that you knew how. And so from that point on, it becomes a teaching moment. So what I find sometimes is our automatic responses comes from a place that we know not of. When abnormal things happen to us, abnormal situations happen to us, we have an emotional response that now connects to our behavioral action. So now we're acting out. We having a response to this abnormal circumstance. And maybe this abnormal circumstance happened yesterday. Maybe it happened years ago, and you just never processed it. Maybe a death that was so traumatic. Maybe a divorce that was so traumatic. Maybe a relationship that was domestic that was so traumatic that we never got a chance to process it. And with that, now when triggers occur, we're responding to it in ways that we don't even understand why. So when abnormal situations happen, that's our body or emotional response. It's a normal response to abnormal situations. We just have to now learn, what do I do with this response? So I'm going to give you a quotation today by a fearless leader that we may all know and love, but it's a politician named Jesse Jackson. And he says, "You are not responsible for being down, but you are responsible for getting up." I'm going to read it again. Jesse Jackson, a 20th century American political leader, says, "You are not responsible for being down, but you are responsible for getting up." What does that quotation say to you today? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share.
Good morning. Good morning to all.
Good morning.
Say, I'm not responsible for being down, So what has happened to me is not my responsibility. That's what I mean. Whatever had happened, whether it's true or not, it's not my responsibility, but it's for what I do about it, about getting up. That's the responsibility. That's the response that I should have to get up from that, what has ever happened to me. Yeah. Be it my fault or someone else, the reason that it happened is for me to get up and move forward.
That's right.
That's what I get.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Susu. Great. Anyone else? Do you get something similar or something different? Anyone else? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share.
For me, kind of the same line as Miss Susu. There are times in your life where you will be down, whether you got knocked down or whether it was in your own hands or by someone else. But being down doesn't mean that you can't get back up. I'm sorry, I'm trying to eat. Being down doesn't mean that you can't get back up. So I'm not responsible for being down on the ground. I'm not responsible for all the stuff that happened to me that made me go down to the ground. But I am responsible for getting up and not laying there and continue to lay in it or continue to rehearse it in my mind. I'm not responsible for that. Thank you.
Awesome. 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 Thank you so much. I get that. Thank you. Ms. Kashara, do you have an interpretation that maybe is similar or different that you'd like to share?
I can, but can I just kind of listen in on this one, and then the next one I will share?
Sure. Jump in whenever
Okay.
you feel
Thank you very much. Okay.
No problem. Yeah, I agree with each of you because definitely life happens. Life happens. There are some things that we are responsible for, and there's some things that we did make happen. But you know what? Life just shows up, period. I'm not responsible for a lot of things that happen in my life. But one thing that I am responsible for, and that's getting back up. And I have to find out how to get back up. I may not know how. I know I got to get up, but I don't know the steps to getting back up. So awesome. That is so great, guys. We want to talk about PTSD. PTSD, as I said earlier, is a post-traumatic stress disorder. And what we find is that the post means after, pre and post, that post is after. Stress, that when we talk about the stress disorder, it comes from something that happened that made you feel some kind of way. So there are some traumas that's happened in your life. It's not always combat in Iraq or Afghanistan or Vietnam. Sometimes those Vietnams is in your home. Sometimes that Afghanistan is in your family and on your job. While you was walking to work, I had my mother called one day, and she was just at the dollar store one day shopping, and some person that was just, mentally ill took a plastic soda bottle. Thank God it was a soda bottle, and he threw it and hit her in her head, and she was not expecting that. That was an abnormal situation that happened. But afterwards, her emotional response played out in her behaviors because where she wasn't as cautious, now she's almost in anxiety, looking around, making sure, her surroundings are safe, and I won't say overly, but at some point it could be overly precautious, because of the anxiety of it. Post, something that's already happened. Traumatic, meaning that trauma that happened in your life, and your response to it, which is the anxiety. The anxiety is that part that brings on the stress, and the disorder is the syndrome of it. So here we are with this PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome disorder, and it comes from trauma that's happened in your life that you have an emotional anxiety response from. It doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel right. It causes distress. And whenever a trigger occurs, it brings on that same distress. And emotionally, we have learned to respond, not learn like cognitively learn, but automatically learn how to survive and protect ourselves. So let me give you some of the symptoms. I want to ask you a few questions. And of course, these questions are just to help you think. Let's say you survived the trauma, an event outside of your control in which you experienced or witnessed a physical threat. A threat may be like sexual abuse, physical abuse, combat, seeing someone killed, surviving a hurricane or a car accident. Let's say that you've seen something or you've experienced something personally that can cause a post traumatic syndrome disorder effect in your life. I'm gonna read some of the other symptoms. So let's say you survived the trauma. Your response to trauma involves intense helplessness because there's a situation that you had no power or control over, whether it's domestic relationship, whether it was a hurricane or a car accident. You had no power or control in it, so you felt helpless. And that helpless feeling can sometimes bring on fear, even feelings of horror. Let's say that you were a child at the time, and maybe you experienced some child abuse. You are powerless to your condition, and sometimes we grow up with that, depending on how intense the trauma is. So we want to be mindful of these things. Also, after the trauma, you suffered some things. Now I'm gonna give you some feedback on and some symptoms of PTSD, because sometimes we don't feel, I survived my trauma, I processed through it, I'm okay, or I survived my trauma and I stuffed it, or I didn't even recognize that it was trauma. Sometimes we label things that maybe we label things sometimes according to our own understanding. And because it's only according to our own understanding, we minimize it. So when we talk about PTSD, we like to say, oh, that's a soldier's disorder. That's when they go to combat. But we have to realize we have traumatic situations and experiences that we deal with on an everyday basis, some worse than others, So if you experience intrusion, and what intrusion is the trauma comes back into your mind even when you don't want it to, like nightmares, flashbacks, things like that. That's intruding in the mind, intruding in your life, that you're just going on, you're at work, and all of a sudden you're just typing up a piece of paper, and all of a sudden these thoughts come back to intrude in your mind. Again, you're feeling like you're out of space, you're out of time, you're not yourself. These thoughts just come and intrude. That's a symptom of PTSD. Also, avoidance, when you have that numbing feeling, you feel disattached, you avoid all reminders of the trauma. Sometimes you don't get back in relationships for a long time because the fear, the trigger, or you do start dating, and maybe the person you're dating may say or make a move or an action that triggers the thought of your violence. Or you're driving in the car and someone stops short in front of you, and it triggers the flashback of an accident, maybe not even your accident, maybe the accident of a loved one where they were injured. That puts some trauma. We had an accident not too long ago here in California where it was all over the news, where a lady was speeding, and I mean at high speed, down a hill in 5 o'clock traffic. And she went down and she hit so many cars, and she killed some people in some very terrible, devastating ways that they die because of the impact from her speed. And because of her accident, I felt the trauma from it. When I was driving, I felt the fear. I felt the anxiety. I don't know the lady. I don't know anything about her story, no more than what was on the news. But because of that traumatic event, I started experiencing the flashbacks. Whenever we was at a red light, they didn't have to worry about me gridlocking or blocking the passageway between where the cars come by. If you're stuck, and when you're going on green and your car gets stuck in between the intersections, they didn't have to worry about me because I was getting out of Dodge after that because I feared someone running a red light and hitting me. That was a traumatic experience for me. So avoidance, again, is numbing, feeling attached, avoiding any reminders of the trauma. Also, arousal, sometimes feeling hyped up. You're easily startled. You can't sleep well. Also, lower functioning, problems in your relationship, work, or other major areas in your life. Have anyone on this line ever experienced any of those symptoms that may be connected to PTSD? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share.
Good morning, this is Sister Lorena.
Good morning,
Yes,
Sister Lorena.
yes. I have experienced, and still sometimes I experience it depending on what's going on around me,
Mhm.
and it's really difficult,
Yeah.
really difficult to talk yourself down from those type of moments.
Yes.
For me, I have to come home. I have to sit down. I have to do not just self-talk, but the physical touching, the rubbing of my hands,
Mhm.
rubbing of my knees,
Mhm.
and just try to come back in awareness of the moment that I'm going through. Like, okay, what is this related to? Acknowledge that it's not happening now. It happened before. And sometimes it takes longer than I would like to
Mhm.
to get back and to the here and now. But I have experienced it much more than I would like to confess on it. But yeah, it's a horrible feeling.
Wow.
Relive. You kind
Yeah.
of relive the moment.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Miss Susu. Yes, Miss Jackson. I had that same experience that your mother had.
Mhm.
As far as someone passing by, the different people, it's a lot of people around you, and you look at them, it seems like they're in a space or something sometime. But yeah, this person, I'm on a disabled my walker,
Mhm.
and we're crossing paths. And this young man, he looks at me, we make eye contact, and I look away. Next thing I know, threw a bottle, a plastic bottle. Thank God it was a plastic. It hit me on the head, and I hollered at stop it. He picked up his bottle of juice and kept walking. And I was upset for a minute, but that just made me more aware. Now when I walk now or when I'm in a different area or something, I'm always observing folks and trying not to make eye contact with them either, but staying safe, getting out of the way, and not trying to be looking afraid or anything, but just observing, or either I'll wait until they pass before I get out of my car. But it made me more aware, of my surroundings and what's going on. So I want to share that. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
Yes. I just like to say, please forgive my puppies are going crazy.
No problem. I love puppies.
I just wanted to say I remember when I was younger, I was in an accident, and then I wasn't the driver, but the accident was a fire truck hit the car that I was in. I at the time had two babies. They were babies. My two older children were babies. The one under the oldest one, she was just like maybe 6 weeks, six
Wow.
to 2 months. And the oldest one, she was just maybe a year. And I tell you, it was terrible. The baby was in my arms, but somehow flew. I don't know how it happened, but flew under the driver's foot, and the car, it hit the car, knocked the car in reverse, and the car was just spinning backwards because she was on the accelerator. And anything could have happened. The impact, it could have, where the cover could have caved in. But every time I see a fire truck or hear it, I tell you, I pump brakes, you know, and I'm looking like, especially if I'm coming across and I see it and it's coming and I'm like, oh my God, you know, I panic because I can never forget that. You know,
Oh,
I could never ever forget that. And it's terrible. Excuse me. I could never forget that. And I just wanted to share that. But, you know, even with that, I try to pray. I try to pray to avoid that over what you call it, over exerting feeling where, you know, a panic will come up. But yeah, that is one of the situations I should never forget, because
wow.
whenever I see that, I'm all breaks. I'm on it, you know.
Wow. And if you don't mind me asking, how long ago has that been?
It's been, well, my oldest daughter now is like 42.
Wow.
And, you know, at the time she was just a year old. So it's
Jesus.
been some years, but every time I see it, that feeling has never gone away. It's there. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Miss Kashara. As we can see, like she said, it's been over 40 years, but the response, the emotional response is still the same to that abnormal situation 40 years ago. Would we say that's PTSD? It could be. These are traumatic situations that have happened in our life that has brought these emotional anxiety, stress-related responses, and our behavior follows suit. Remember, the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, they all work together. Thank you for sharing that, guys. Anyone else before we move forward? I think I heard for everyone on the line. There's two types of PTSD. There's what's called a simple PTSD. You know, maybe you had a traumatic situation that happened once. You know, it happened once in your life and they call it simple. It doesn't mean that the symptoms from the PTSD is going to be simple, but it means that's what they call it, simple, versus complex PTSD. Complex PTSD is if it's a repeated situation. Let's say you've been in repeated car accidents, repeated domestic abuse, your family or someone repeatedly abused you as a child, repeatedly abused you in the marriage, repeatedly, you know, things that repeatedly happen. That's called more complex PTSD. So what I want to say is understand your PTSD symptoms is normal after what you've been through. You know, sometimes we kind of look at ourselves as, girl, get over it, you know, or wow, I'm damaged goods. But I want us to recognize that after what you've gone through, you feeling out of space sometimes, you feeling like some things are intruding your mind, you feel a little avoidance, you don't want to be bothered, sometimes you disassociate. I want you to know that these things are normal after what you've been through. And also understanding that PTSD is considered an anxiety disorder. So in the DSM, it is labeled under anxiety disorder. So it is a clinically acknowledged disorder that we don't want to just look at ourselves as, girl, get over it. You know, dude, man up. You know, no, this is a disorder that changed our brain, that's affected our emotional self, which thus affects the things that we do. So we want to understand that it is possible to heal from PTSD. I'm just taking a look at some of my notes that I have for you guys. You know, you're not alone. A lot of people have PTSD. A lot of stars, even I think Oprah Winfrey went on and talked about her experiences with PTSD from things that have happened in her past. Many of our actors and things. So we find that you can return to a normal state. And I like how Ms. Kashara identified to us that even though this happened 40 years ago, she still have the emotional response. Like she said, when she hear the fire truck, instantly she hit the brakes, she get into safety. She gets into safety. So we find that even though her response is still a response that may be related to that anxiety of the PTSD, but at the same time, she's managed it over the years where she's not freaking out, she's not grabbing her babies, but she's getting into safety. And so that's something good that comes from the PTSD. And we want to recognize that lots of times, our compulsive behaviors are connected to that anxiety disorder that we're going through that we haven't identified. Sometimes we wonder why we do some of the things we do. Why do I use drugs? Why do I just cuss people out? Why do I have promiscuous ways? Why? Sometimes we don't examine the why, because if we do, sometimes we'll find out that some of the why will take us back to some of our trauma. Sometimes it's a response to our trauma. Many times PTSD is just your emotions trying to be of defense. So sometimes our emotions response to the trauma we experience. Of course, it transposes into our actions and what we do. But guess what? Those actions are just a way that we protect ourselves. Again, with Miss Kashara, like she said, when she heard the fire truck, now she automatically get in safety. She hit the brakes. You might say hitting the brakes may not be safe, but that's the emotional response. Hey, I got to stop this right now. And then she gets into safety. As just like Miss Susu said, after she experienced what she experienced, now here it is, like she said, she's more aware of her surroundings. I don't know how she was before, but she obviously is more aware. Is there some anxiety there? Possibly, but she's groomed it now to just, now it's a part of her life. So whatever our emotional self dictates is to bring us into safety. But some of our compulsive behaviors that is caused to make us safe, we find that they're the stronghold of our lives, because we're put this safety fortress here that we're hiding behind, but at the same time, it's not good for us. It's just a safety mechanism. It's just a safety mechanism that we have to protect us from the traumas that has happened in our past. Does it mean that it's a nice fortress? It's a safe fortress? It's a good for us fortress? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Have we ever experienced things? You've been in a few bad relationships, and so now we have a fortress up and we're saying, well, all men are dogs. Is that true? No, it's not true. But that's my safety mechanism. I'm hiding behind my stronghold. It's false evidence that appears real to me. I know we use that acronym for fear, which it does apply, but at the same time, it applies to so many other responses that we have, that now we've erected strongholds in our heart and in our minds. There are false belief systems. So I believe that if I hit the brakes, I'll be okay. And she had to correct that and now move to the side for safety. So now Miss Susu believed that if I look around and make sure my surroundings is okay, I can be prepared for anything that happens. But what she found is that I need to look around for my own, because like she said, she's disabled herself. So I have to look around for my own safety so I can get safely into my car or safely into my family's car. So we find that sometimes the emotional response may not initially be a good one. It just appears to be good at the time. So now we're learning how to respond, to tear down the strongholds and create healthier ways to now protect ourselves and still have healthy boundaries, where we're not all enclosed in, don't want nobody to know this, that, and the other, or that we're not all out and open, but that we're flexible, we're safe, we're connected. So we find that, when we talk about PTSD, lots of times our compulsive behaviors are there because PTSD sometimes connects to some of our substance abuse, lying, enabling, gambling, promiscuity, whatever compulsive behaviors there are in the sun, even healthy ones like over exercising, being overly exercise, with the exercise regimen, anything we understand. Now that's a safer anxiety disorder. That's a safer compulsive behavior. But at the same time, I want to get my compulsion and I want to get my anxieties and my obsessions under my control, not their own control. So to overcome the terrible symptoms of PTSD, sometimes people use substances to self-medicate. They may operate in certain behaviors in order to feel like they're in control again. People sleep with people, they become promiscuous. Sometimes they cuss people out at the drop of a hat, an effort to protect themselves. Sometimes also PTSD may have occurred together with some of our compulsive behaviors. We find that some people grew up in a home where family members hurt one another. So sometimes my PTSD occurred while my compulsive behavior was occurring. So maybe to protect yourself, you hid under the bed, or you just said random curse words, or whatever safety mechanisms that you had for yourself while in your pain. Now they've become a part of your lifestyle. Also, PTSD can be connected with a downward spiral. PTSD can lead you to substance abuse and many other compulsive behaviors. And now you at risk for more trauma, because if you practice your compulsive behavior, let's say you have anger because of the things that you've gone through. Now your anger being just that false, that stronghold, that false safety mechanism. Now people are responding to your anger. So now you're putting yourself at risk of more trauma. If you're using substances, you're putting yourself at risk of more trauma. If you're sleeping around, you're putting yourself at risk of more trauma. If you're enabling people, you're still putting yourself at risk of more trauma because of their responses when they don't follow suit to what you're feeling. We're putting ourselves in hurts and harm's way again. So have you noticed that maybe some of your responses to your traumas of past, some of those, the abnormal situation happened, and now your emotional response to it, have you identified that emotional response that turned into some behaviors that you have you identified them being unhealthy for you? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share.
Okay, this is Bianca. For me, I think I have that not the simple but the complex.
Okay.
Because there was things that was done to me over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so and then not just that, but then also into a abusive marriage. Not just that, but also as a child, my family would have shootouts with each other. So
Oh.
yeah, that too.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I did realize is that I did put up a coping mechanism where when it came to relationships, I
Okay.
kind of like blocked it out completely. Because I remember it was a time when it was really fresh on me, and I couldn't even sit and watch like Maury or different things like that if they talked about being molested or stuff like that. I would just break down and start crying because, of course, that hit home for me. And so I realized that as I grew older, I kind of just blocked out, like no relationship, especially after my abusive marriage. Just like no relationships, I'm good, whatever. And just kind of just going on with life. Definitely have heard PTSD taught. Um, in another arena. And so it began to help me with some of the things where I thought that PTSD was only for those that been in the army.
Right.
Those ones that, will hear fireworks and want to jump underneath the bed and stuff because they think it's guns being shot and different things like that. So that's what I really thought it was all about for a long time. But then of course, I went to a class and everything. And so then I realized, no, it's not just that.
Yeah.
And so then, like I said, I realized that I had kind of blocked out relationships due to the fact of what had happened to me when I was younger. And so, like I said, that became my coping thing. But today, as I continue to listen to the information, gather information, and different things like that, it kind of helps me to deal with situation. I don't have that where it's a replaying thing in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that going on with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, I guess I got through that part or whatever. Because sometimes when you're going through something or you're going through the process, you're not even aware that you're really going through it until you just realize, oh, I'm on the other side here now.
Yeah.
Because you went through it for so long, it just had became a part of you. But anyway, yeah, I think that was something for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That complex trauma, that repeated trauma have manifested a complex type of PTSD that you've identified and you're doing something about it. I love that. Thank you so much. And you said that it affected your relationships. Thank you for sharing that. Because there are some things that we put up, those strongholds, and we have all this false evidence why this stronghold should exist, why I should cuss people out, why I should avoid relationships, because it seemed good at the time, but it's just false evidence that appears real to us. And until we come into some identity and awareness of what we're going through, then can we help ourselves in more healthier ways, and we can embrace relationships again. We can embrace those people, and we can embrace the idea of moving forward in a relationship. So thank you so much for that. Anyone else?
Yes, it's so again. Yeah, the traumatic experience that I explained about before, about being hit, yes, it made me, withdrawn, because I kind of felt, what's going to happen if I go back out? So it kept me in for a while,
Okay.
I just kept thinking about it, and looking around when I would go out. And then, I didn't go out that often, but now, I guess I built up the stamina, just to be more aware, but I can go out now. This happened about almost a year ago, about a year ago. So
Wow.
I feel more freer now, but
Okay.
at first it had me bound, I didn't want to go out, not even out the house for a while,
Yes.
wondering who might be around the corner or whatever, just had me stuck. But I'm freer now. I'm just being more aware.
Yes. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that, Ms. Susu. That's that automatic, that's our emotional response. And it's
Yeah.
normal. It's normal considering what you've been through. That was an abnormal situation. You know how sometimes we can say, oh, if this happened to me, I'm gonna do this, or if that happens to me, I'm gonna do this, or if this happened, that person should have did that. Well, there's some things that just happened that just was so outside of your radar, just so out of your norm, that your emotions, it's like, wait a minute, what just happened? And while it's trying to figure it out, it has an automatic response. And just like Miss Susu said, she was afraid to go out for a while. She felt fearful. She didn't feel safe. Wouldn't that be a normal response to emotionally? Sometimes we're like, we don't know how we're going to respond. Somebody may go out the next day and don't feel anything about it. It's different for each individual, but to be in awareness of ourselves, be in contact with ourselves so we can identify these feelings. I love that. But like she says, she took some time and now she's well, she can go out now. But there are some people that don't process through that automatic emotional response to that abnormal situation. And what happens is that they become stuck and they don't know how to get out. Thank you so much, Miss Susu. Excuse me. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Mhm.
And I guess my question is, what if the trauma just keeps on being triggered throughout time with different situations? Because I didn't specify a trauma earlier. I just specified what my response to it is,
Right.
because I have so many.
Okay.
A few years ago, I had issues. Well, no, I didn't have issues. The neighbors had issues with me where they vandalized my car and they were stalking me and they were threatening me and my girls. And whenever I see a large crowd of like people, and even if they look at me funny, it brings back that trauma.
Yes.
I'm not one to shut down though. I don't shut down. I push through it.
Okay.
Only being because I'm not by myself, right? I have my girls to look out to, and whatever, it's on and cracking. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. But and that's just my defense mechanism. I could come home inside my house and then cry it out and be, oh my God, that was so scary.
Right.
But in the face of it, I don't demonstrate it. But I have a lot of these moments.
Okay.
You know, and I can tell you that I can lie and say I'm not scared when all this PTSD comes back, because it's not just my feeling, it's not just a response to it. It's continual. I get hyper vigilant. So my question is, how is it normal to continue experiencing PTSD from the same trauma?
It's very normal, Sister Lorena. It's very normal. You know why? Because you haven't gotten the peace or the healing in it yet. There's some things that over a period of time, and no one can dictate the time. Just like you're saying, this happened X amount of time ago, and now you're still feeling the experience when you're triggered. And you may be in a neighborhood where the same like people are gathering. So it's continual triggering. So one thing that I would suggest, is to get some help, get some therapy with it. I have PTSD. Excuse me, not to label yourself, but I'm having some symptoms that looks like is related to PTSD. I went through a traumatic situation, and now the triggers are all around me, because you're going to start seeing people. You're going to see people in groups everywhere. You're going to see people that are Black. You're going to see people that are Hispanic. You're going to see people that are white somewhere in groups. If it's on television, if it's in your neighborhood, and if you're in a neighborhood where like people are there gathering, you can't help but to be triggered. Some processes take longer than others because of the depth of the effect, the depth of the traumatic response. And sometimes we do things compulsively in order to protect ourselves from it. So absolutely, yes, it is normal that it can go on and on and on. But one thing that I would suggest is therapy to help with the healing, because sometimes we live in an area where there's nothing but triggers. And if I'm continually triggered, it's hard to heal without help. So I would suggest to anyone, if you find yourself long-term still feeling the effects of a trauma, then that's affecting you in a deep measure, get some help. Get some help. Talk to a therapist. Find you a therapist that you feel good about, that you can relate to. Maybe call your medical network and find out what type of services do you have for mental health therapy, because that's something that we have to look into. Anxiety is connected to our mental health, is connected to our peace. So thank you so much for that. I would suggest to anyone to get the help that we need, because one thing about it, we have destiny on our life. We're going somewhere in God, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to have an experience. One thing that I love, one of the documentations in the Word of God, when Jesus told the disciples, meet me on the other side, meet me on the other side. So if Jesus told me that, let me get my shoes, I'm on my way, I'm going to meet you on the other side. But no one ever told them that there was going to be some trauma, a traumatic experience that they were going to experience that was going to be outside of their skill set, outside of their expectation. Because if Jesus said, meet me, they didn't see Jesus do immediate works. So that means, shoot, let me get on the other side and meet Jesus. They had no expectation and no anticipation that they were going to go through what they went through. So sometimes getting to our next or getting to our destiny, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be flawed. We're not going to have some experiences that's going to maybe even try to damage us. Life is going to show up on life terms, but God has given us physicians. He has given us help. He has given us therapists. He has given us help. So let's get the help that we need so that we can continue in our journey. That's an awesome question. Thank you. Yes, it is very normal to continue to go through those intense symptoms. It's very normal considering the intensity of the abnormal situation, the traumatic situation that you experience. Yes. Anyone else? We'll go on. One of the things that we talk about with PTSD, after we acknowledge that I do have some symptoms, some avoidance, some numbness, some disassociation, the intrusion, the flashbacks, the nightmares, once I identify that this may be PTSD related, I have to identify, how do I take my power back now? No one wants to live a life of fear. No one wants to live a life of anxiety. How do I take my power back? Maybe sometimes it's just sitting down, regrouping. Child, get it together. That happened. We're going to get over it. We might give ourselves positive affirmations. We may pull ourselves up, get it together, check ourselves, whatever it is that we do. But one of the things that when you find that it's intense, I would suggest to anyone to get therapy. But the first thing that I would suggest you to do is have compassion. We talked about compassionate self-talk versus harsh self-talk. And I like how Sister Lorraine says sometimes self-talk just don't work. But I want us to practice it as a starter, because what happens is we'll never get to the depth of healing if we don't compassionately look at what's going on with ourselves. When we talk about compassionate self-talk, and I want you to understand, compassion in this means accepting and respecting yourself. Not being mad, upset, or angry because you're feeling this way and it's hindering you, maybe the anxiety or the fear. I'll be taking a trip soon, and the anxiety, one of the people that are accompanying me, they have a fear of height. And they have a fear of being enclosed. They have a fear of many different things. And so they were saying, I don't know where it came from. So it may be some anxiety surrounding a traumatic situation that she's experienced, but she's willing now to do something about it. And she's taking a compassionate look at herself, and she's like, you know what? I'm going to give myself a chance to live. First, she was kind of cuddling the anxiety. She was trying to be safe. Don't bother me and I won't bother you. Okay. I won't get on elevators. I'll walk 25 flights of stairs. I won't get on airplanes. She was kind of allowing the anxiety disorder to just kind of rule her life, but she's taken her power back today. She's taken her power back. And one of the things that we have to do is own that this is a problem and respect it. I talked about Superman with the kryptonite. He has to respect that the kryptonite is overcomes him. So what can I do about it? Well, he found out I need to stay away from kryptonite. So sometimes there's some traumas and the responses that teach us that there's some things we have to stay away from. But maybe you're like Lorena, the triggers are everywhere in your community. The triggers are everywhere. So for one, we want to have that compassionate self-talk with ourselves. Taking our power back starts with understanding what you've been through, facing it, looking at it. Maybe you have to look at it and face it with therapy. Maybe you have to look at it and face it with your pastor. Maybe you have to look at it and face it with your life coach. But I want you to know that if you don't feel comfortable alone, there are professionals that are around that will help you in your process. There are some people, if nothing else, can just support you in your process. But we want to start a process of healing. So we want to be compassionate with ourselves rather than blaming ourselves and being angry at ourselves because this situation exists, and being comfortable with the temporary band-aids that we've placed on these bruises, on these offenses. We want to make sure that we're not just looking at these things and saying, oh, this stronghold is safe, is good for me because I can peek out every so often, but this stronghold that I've erected in my heart and mind, it's okay. I'm just going to stay away from men. Is that possible? Is that healthy? Is that safe and connected? Or I may say, I'm just going to cuss everybody I see. I'm just going to operate angry. I'm not going to do karate. I'm going to do crazy. Is that healthy? Is that a suitable response to your pain? Maybe immediately that was the response for my safety. But now, as we're moving into healing and taking our power back, we want to explore, what are the anchors of this pain? What are the problems? What are the connectors? What are some things that you identified that you had to deal with in order to deal with your trauma, the response to your trauma? What are some of the things you had to deal with? Anger, fear, feeling afraid? What did you have to deal with? What have you dealt with? What are you dealing with right now to take your power back? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share.
For me, it was anger,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fear also.
Okay.
I had to deal with the anger of, it happened to me, why it happened to me. And then being angry with the one that did it to me.
Yes.
So I had to deal with that. Then I had to deal with the fear of, after all that took place, wasn't healed at all because I didn't get no healing, but ran right on into being married, and then went into that. It was an abusive relationship. And then, okay, now I'm in this. I done jumped out the frying pan into the hot boiling skillet. And now there's a whole fear that has rose up inside of me. Well, now I just I can't. I just can't. I can't be bothered with it. Period. Another thing that I had, first I had to get all that under control. To the best of my knowledge, that came through talking about it. That came through support. That came into knowing that it was not my fault. I'm an innocent child in all of this. Yeah. But when you heard all these things growing up, seeds that is planted, they do grow.
Yes.
So then you grow up to believe, well, she said that was my fault, or she said I must have had walked a certain way, or something of that sort. So I had to go back and kind of just sit down and kind of like regroup that thing.
Right.
I'm innocent in this.
Yes.
I'm innocent in this. I had to also allow people to know in this day that some of the stuff that I did back then, or some of the people that I talked to back then, don't talk to me about that today.
Okay.
And so let me just say it like this. After my abusive relationship with marriage, I started talking to older men. Okay, because found out the younger men were, maybe that's just ain't it. So I talked to older men. They seem to be more well settled, and they want to take care of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so today, I've been single, celibate, all that for many, many, many years. But when people want to talk to me about maybe a relationship, they'll say stuff like, "Oh, remember now, she liked the older men." Then I had to stop them and say, "No, I don't. I might have, but that's not where I am today." So I had to stop them because you're not gonna take me back there.
Okay.
You're not gonna take me back there.
That was just a safety mechanism at the time.
Yes. So that's over and done with. And so to tell me this is what I like now, that's not the truth now. So I'm not gonna continue to let you think it. Maybe you do think it because that was what I did. So maybe you think, that was the reputation or whatever. So, you ain't caught up with the new yet. You still reading the old version.
Yeah.
So, but I had to stop it. I had to stop it and say, no, 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 no. That's not what it is today.
Yeah.
That's not where it is today. So that's how my healing has came and yet coming, it's helping me to heal. It's those things right there to stop all that extra noise, to realize that it was not my fault, to step out and say, you know what? Yeah, I have put this wall up for many, many, many years. And let me say something with that wall being up. With that wall being up, it was also an opportunity for me to be healed too.
Okay.
So it kind of worked both ways. Yeah, I put the wall up because I didn't want nobody to come in, but also that wall was up also because in that process I needed to be healed from the inside. I needed that to be healed, and so now today, the wall is being chipped away.
Okay.
Chip. No. But anyway, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is excellent. I love the identifications. And even like you said, while you were healing, the wall was up, but you also took that as a dual process, a time to isolate, but also a time to heal. I love that. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
My healing was, my healing was more or less self-talk, talk myself into, and prayer, God's protection over me as I go out. And gradually, I've got the strength to go and not be as spiritual. But it's more or less with the self-talk, talk myself, this happens, there's a lot of mental illness. You don't even know what it looked like sometimes. Sometimes you see the face and kind of tell. But anybody's subject to go off at any time. So you look at the ones that look like they could be,
yes,
just any moment, they could strike out. And then some may not. But it's just more awareness, prayer, and self-talk. Gotta go, not be afraid. That was it for me.
Awesome. So you were able to heal through that process and you found some things that you needed to do to help you heal as well as be safe. Being hidden in the house was a temporary stronghold that appeared real and safe to do at the time. But like you said, I know I have to go out and live my life. There's things I have to do. I can't live from inside. So you found that being aware help the process in the healing therein. And being aware of the triggers that are around you when you see people that look suspect, not to just blow it off in your mind like, get over it and don't do that. No, but to now take a real inventory. Is it safe for me to go to my car? Is it safe for me to come out my house? Let me view it, not in an anxiety or anxious way, but in a way of safety that brings me safety. That's awesome. Thank you, Miss Susu. Anyone else?
God bless you. This is Sister Lorena. I have a question.
Okay.
Do triggers signify that you are not healed?
I didn't hear the last part. Does trigger signify that?
You are not healed.
They signify that the issue still has power. So I won't say that you're not healed, but I would say that it still has some power in your life where maybe you're not totally safe. There's some more healing that needs to be addressed and accomplished.
Thank you.
Won't say that you're not healed, but if the trigger still has power where it's kind of overwhelming, because I want us to realize that these situations in our life, as all you guys have shared, they do teach us lessons. They do teach us lessons. So it's just like if you love someone, if you was in a bad relationship, and that relationship was so traumatic to you, they treated you bad, they physically, emotionally, financially, mentally abused you or whatnot. Leaving that situation, you will experience the triggers, but it's one thing that we learn from the experience. And when we learn from the experience, then we're kind of looking at people, we're kind of looking at them beyond, oh, he cute or she cute, I like you, you like me, we maybe dive in, we maybe dive in a little closer. We're more cautious. We take more inventory. We examine them a little more, be it verbally or not verbally. But what happens is sometimes the trauma of what you've been through is still there, even though you're healing, even though you're living a normal life. When sometimes we find that the trauma, what we've been through, is still overwhelming. So we just need a little bit, we need some more healing. We need some more healing. We need some more time. It doesn't mean, because let me say this, trauma affects us emotionally, but it also affects the brain. So during our healing process, there may be some levels or some areas of the brain and the emotions that has been healed, but maybe some areas that have not. So we're still in the area of healing. I'm healed from the fact that I'm not running from men anymore, but at the same time, now I have to heal from just the feeling of the atmosphere, the memory that comes. Because remember, our brain have different parts and they do different things. And so they have different functions. So maybe I'm not in fear or in anxiety anymore, but the memory is still intrusive by the triggers. Maybe it's the effect that now it slows down my dopamine process, which brings me pleasure, which brings me a feeling of well-being. So lots of times, certain parts of our brain has been healed. So it doesn't mean we're not healed, but we just need more time and more healing. That's how I'd answer that. Anyone else? Thank you for that, Sister Lorena. Thank you.
Hi, I'm coming in. Hold on.
Maybe if you're near somebody that's on the conference call, it gives that kind of feedback sometimes. Okay. And while Miss Grace is getting that together, anybody else want to share on that? Go ahead,
Okay.
Miss Grace.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Is it still morning? Good morning.
It's still morning.
I
Our
came
time changed.
Yeah, I just got back in. Okay. Now I came in kind of late on the conversation, but you're talking about the PTSD. With me, I'm still dealing with the assault issue.
Mhm.
And And it's kind of like, because I still have the effect of the abuse and the effect of the actual wound, that you can say, I'm still feeling that because I haven't healed from the physical part of it yet. So actually, the physical goes with the mental. So it's kind of hard for me to deal with the letting go process because I'm still physically hurting. And every time I feel the pain within my body, it automatically bring back the assault itself. And then I'm angry all over again, even though I have not had contact with the person, but I know eventually one day is coming. And since I'm still feeling the effect of it all, I'm still having a hard time, letting it go. And I don't know, I can't say that I won't ever let it go, but since it's being so brand new, I I just don't know how to deal with it without getting angry all over again. To the part to where, like, like even with the police said, they, to me it's like they just overlooked it, like, oh, that didn't, it was nothing. They dropped it down to a misdemeanor. And I'm like, a misdemeanor? So how you think that makes me feel? As it's an assault, all out assault, but then you drop it down to a misdemeanor. That's not even with the person that did it, they're saying they had no regard for me. And then with the system, say I have no regard for you. So yeah, I have a hard time dealing with that. And I don't know how to deal with it. And that's like that just this point, I don't even want to deal with further than deal with. I want to deal with it, but I don't know how without, that anger is just fresh. It's still there.
And I can understand why. I can understand why so many people are being very angry because of the injustice that's done to them. We have a failing criminal system, and due to some laws that have recently passed, a lot of police are not responding to some of what they call low-level crimes. And any crime that's an offense on our life, on our body, on our person, period, is high in our book, but in this judicial criminal system, it may not be as so. So I can understand your anger, and that's something that's going to have to take some time to process through. I would suggest, like you said, when you're ready to deal with it, kind of talk to somebody about it. The more you talk about a situation, and I don't mean like in an area just venting, because that keeps the anger going. But there are some things when we talk about it and we look for solutions, that's when we can experience some healing. We desensitize ourselves from the power of the pain of it. And I understand that your emotional self is connected to your emotional self is connected even to the injuries that are still there. Those live injuries are triggers that they did this to me. So I understand that your healing is a slow process healing because you haven't finished going through the first stage of the offense, going through acceptance. When we talk about acceptance goes through some stages. Acceptance goes through, first of all, anger. And it sounds like that's where you are. And what I would suggest is for you to go through, don't try to jump into healing. I have a young lady who her mother was brutally murdered. She was tortured by her boyfriend's daughter. She did a lot of gruesome things to her. And they haven't, the police have her, she's in jail and everything, but they're starting the trial. And what happens is, she's like, how do I forgive this person? Because she's focused on, God saying, if you don't forgive, then how can he forgive you? So she's saying, how can I forgive this person I don't want to walk in unforgiveness and miss heaven. And but this anger that I have, and we're about to go through court, and they're going to be showing pictures, you know, with her mom and how she was tortured and things like that, and why. And like I told her, you're not ready for the forgiveness part. So sometimes we are trying to jump our process. So what I would share with you, Miss Grace, is to feel it. Go ahead and feel your anger. Feel it, because you have to get through that process to accept, this is what happened to me. This is the judicial system's response to it. I don't like it, but these are the laws today. And now, and whatever else you need to accept, because that acceptance system, it starts with anger, it goes into bargaining. Sometimes you fall into depression, you know, then you're in denial. A lot of things have to happen in that wheel of acceptance, in that stage. And once we get to the place of acceptance, then maybe we can go into a process of healing. But don't try to be quick to go through that process. Feel your feelings. This is what we're talking about today. Having some compassion on yourself. Understanding this happened to me. I have a right to be angry. I have a right to feel offended, you know, and go through that process. Feel it. If you need to go and scream, ah! If you need to go and shout, if you need to just talk this thing out to somebody till you just can't talk it out no more, go through your process. Feel the offense that's done to you. That matters. Sometimes we stuff our feelings, but our feelings matter. That's an emotional response to an abnormal situation that happened to you. And it's very acceptable. It's very normal. It makes sense after what you've been through. So thank you for that question. Thank you. If I were to make a suggestion, I would say to you, go through your process. Acceptance doesn't take days, sometimes not even months, sometimes not even just a couple of years. It may take a while to get through that full acceptance before you can get to that place of healing. But guess what? You're in pursuit to your healing. Anyone else? I see a couple of others have joined us. Hello, hello, hello. We're in our last 15 minutes. We're talking about the symptoms of PTSD and how they may be a part of why we do some of our compulsive unhealthy behaviors. I'm going to go and I want you to understand that beating yourself up and hating yourself is not something that you want to practice. You want to be compassionate with yourselves, accept and recognize what you're going through, own it so that you can heal it. You know, whatever we don't identify, is going to kill us. So therefore, or it's going to dominate us. And if we don't dominate it, it will dominate us. So sometimes we find that having some compassion in this, instead of harshness, helps us to take our power back in this PTSD phase. Having that compassion is good because what we find is our adversities that we've gone through, it gives us some gifts because of what you've gone through, because of what you experienced, because of the traumatic situations that you've gone through. Once we go through that process, where now we're getting to some place of healing, we're getting to some place of strength, we'll realize that we're also receiving gifts. We receive gifts now that maybe now we have compassion on people we didn't have compassion on before. Sometimes we have now a new appreciation for nature. We have a new appreciation for things that we didn't even think about before. You know, maybe young children, we were just so on the go because you've gone through some of the pain that you've gone through. Now you have a focus on people that's not just mainstream, but people that are on the sidelines of life that are suffering. Now, sometimes that because of your adversity, you have a new tolerance to deal with situations, a new tolerance to pain, a new ability to help people. people. You have a new strength now. You can love different. You can view things different. Your pain changed your perspective on things. Sometimes we're about me, myself, and I. But sometimes when we go through some of our adversities, and even though they were traumatic, our process through them, we also receive gifts. We learn how to handle things. I went through some things where it's brand new and it's traumatic, but guess what? I learned how to overcome it. So now learning how to overcome it, I can, like Ms. Kashara say, I can reach out and offer what I've learned to someone else. And now I'm creating a cycle of help. And that's one of the things that's a strength to me when my life has gone through what it's gone through and what it's going through, and now coming into a place of safety where now what I've gone through can help others. That's enough for me. So we find that many things that we've gone through has built some strengths and some talents and some gifts and some abilities and some enablements inside of us. I want you to share with me real quickly, even though you went through that trauma, even though you went through that pain, even though you end up shipwrecked, and you may still be even dealing with some of the emotional effects of it, you're still tearing down those strongholds, and you're now identifying healthier ways to respond to those feelings. I want you to tell me, what gifts have you gained from it? What strengths, what new abilities, enablements that you've gained from it? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share.
God bless you. This is Sister Lorena.
Hey.
And although I'm still going through some healing process, right? And taking my power back one step at a time of different traumas that I have and PTSD that I experienced, I know that I've gained more awareness, not of the situation, but of me,
Okay.
of how to be aware of my body signals, of where the trauma hits. If it's either in my neck area, on my head, in my chest, you know, I can identify different impacts and where it has it. And when I don't know the answer of how to regulate, I look for it. So I'm not in that moment where I know how to process the moment in a better way. One thing I will say is that I am no longer reactive. I don't react, I respond, right? I don't react. It's not a impulsive reaction. It's a response that I respond to my body accordingly. Like, okay, I'm feeling this. What helps me with this situation at this moment, with this feeling, to regulate my feelings?
Awesome. I love it. Thank you, Sister Lorena. Who else? What gifts have you acquired from your pain? What abilities have you acquired?
Jenny.
Go ahead, Jenny. Hey.
I see no one else sharing. Excuse me for being late. You know, of things I had to do. And I just wanted to say, as far as you know, when every traumatic situation that I went through, I don't know what really PTSD is really, because every time I felt something, every time I had a feeling of anger or even remorse, unforgiveness, everything that I felt, I used. I drank, I used. I drank, I used.
Right.
I don't want to feel none of that.
Right.
I drank, I used every day as I could. And once I got clean and sober, and matter of fact, November 22nd will be my 18th birthday, and I thank God for that.
Congratulations.
So I've been knowing Miss Jackson for 18 years, and all those, you know, I learned how to feel, you know, with grouping, you know, with the sessions. Like like we're doing now. And that really helped me. And
Mhm.
everything, like you said, I had to process it, and it was some hate for a while. It was some hate, forgiveness. I even felt like, excuse me, but it's true. I even felt like killing someone at
Mhm.
one time. I hated him so much.
Mhm.
And that's when I knew I had to get away. But I um I thank God that He put the forgiveness in my heart. And it took a while, like you said, Miss
Mhm.
Jackson. It
Yeah.
took a while to process that, to forgive somebody that tried to hurt you and kill you, basically.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
but like I said, I don't even know what I don't know what it feel like. I don't know if I went through it, but whatever I did go through, I made sure I was high,
Yeah.
so I didn't feel it. And
Yeah.
then, but as being sober, after I start processing, and I just start feeling it, and it was hard. It was hard, but if you keep on, you get through it. You get through it. So thank you for letting me share. God bless you.
Thank you for sharing. Absolutely. Those are those addictive behaviors because we don't want to feel the pain. Many times we're numbing, we're disassociating. We don't want to feel the pain, the emotional harm, the emotional hurt. Offenses, these traumatic experiences that we've gone through, we're looking for a way to cope because sometimes we don't know the healthy way out. So we start picking up, we use some other compulsive behaviors. We cuss everybody out that we see. We become angry, whatever it is, we do things to respond to the pain. And I like how Miss Jenny said, I didn't want to feel. And that's one of the symptoms where we start building that stronghold. And we start reinforcing it, even though it's just a survival technique. I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to hide behind this stronghold and I'm not going to come out until I feel safe. So now that we're devising more safe ways to deal with that emotional response to that abnormal situation that happened, now we find ourselves becoming more connected again. We're finding ourselves taking our power back. Anyone else? What's some of the gifts that you have received from your pain? What are some of the enablements, the strengths, things that you weren't able to do before, but since that, you got a whole newness going on about you? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share. Anyone? Your ability to help others? Your ability.
It's Jenny again, if you don't mind. I
I
see
don't mind.
nobody.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Once I did start feeling things, once I did start processing, what I started finding myself doing was, when I did feel something, or whenever that person or whoever would offend me or whatever I didn't like, I
Mhm.
spoke up on it. I
Okay.
start I start confronting, basically, because I was the type of person, like, I would just take it. You
Okay.
say this to
Okay.
me, I'll take it. You say something wrong to me, I still take it. Anything, you made me laugh, I take it. You made me mad, I take it. A lot of times I wouldn't say anything,
Mhm.
and I had a situation like that really made me, to start speaking up, become bold, basically. And
Hey.
I felt, yeah, and that was one of the gifts that, my boldness came more out, and
Yeah.
and to
Courage.
speak up when something bothered me, and I'm not gonna take that. I'm gonna say something. Now
Yeah.
I say, sometimes I might say a little too much, but I'm gonna say something,
You found your
and then I
voice.
and then I watch. Then I try to think more of what I'm gonna say and how I'm gonna say it, so I
Mhm.
don't offend anyone. But I don't have to take, I don't have to take your stuff and put, you don't, I'm not gonna allow you to put your stuff on me, and once I started speaking more and then sharing my feelings with certain things or certain people,
Mhm.
that's when I started feeling better. I started talking about it and
Yeah.
releasing, things. I want to even speak, with my mother, with the offense of all through the years. Mind you, my mother I felt she was a great mother when I was growing up,
Okay.
until a certain time in a certain stage in our lives that things had changed. But and I had to forgive my mother for many things. And once I told her how I felt about her and what I felt who she was, it just seemed like it just the cloud went away. It was a clearness, and it was such a release that it felt like, you talking about bricks. I think a whole brick house came off my shoulders.
Wow.
So and I found it more better to, even though, even the forgiveness parts of people in the past that had hurted me, and then I've hurt people too, like you said, it was a process to go through that. And it's a process. It's not, I wasn't ready for a while, and then finally I was like, you know what, I forgive that person. It just comes to you, once you keep on processing. So but that's one of the gifts, my boldness. God gave me some boldness to speak of. I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to allow you to say things to me and cover it up, within myself or with anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. She got her courage. She found her voice. Like you say, maybe it was a little harsh in the beginning, but throughout time, practicing using her voice and taking courage helped her to now do it a little bit more gracefully. I love that. Anyone else before we go?
God bless you. This is Sister Lorena.
Yeah, go ahead, Sister Lorena.
Reflecting on the question, you know what? Being able to be compassionate to someone else that has very like traumas,
Yeah.
and relate to their story.
Yes.
Where I can be a listening ear and say, hey, you know what? You're not the only one that goes through those type of feelings. And, we be able to relate and help them pinpoint some stuff.
Yes.
So they can also start a process.
Awesome. I like that. So they too can start a process. We're able to be of help to someone, have some compassion. That's awesome. That's awesome. You guys are awesome. I salute you guys. I love you. Life is not easy and life change is not either. But guess what? We're going through it. So I'm so grateful to each and every one of you that chimed in today. Remember our new time, 9:30 to 11, so that we can get in and get the full message. And I'm going to be putting these, videos in a place soon, so that you can glean from the days that you missed. Still trying to work that out. But in the meantime, guys, hey, you know what I say, live free. We have to identify what we're going through, because sometimes our feelings make us feel like my background, out of space. I feel like I'm not even of this earth, that no one can relate to me right now. I feel like I'm an isolated being because no one understands what I'm going through inside right now, not even yourself. But guess what? Someone understands. So please, let's be mindful not to repeat the same unhealthy behaviors, those behaviors that maybe we put up at one time as a stronghold to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe. It was a survival mechanism, but now we're not doing that anymore. We're coming out and we're living free. God bless you guys, and I look forward to hearing from you again on tomorrow. God bless you. Live free, guys.